What's up, guys? We are wrapping up the Age of Apocalypse Sugar Man wave with Sugar Man. So we don't have any packaging to talk about today because he comes in a series of 7 different boxes. So we're just going to jump right into it and talk about this figure. And boy, this thing is pretty wild. There is a lot going on with this guy. He is just weird. There is just the weirdest amount of stuff going on with this figure. I never expected we were going to get this thing. I was really surprised to see that it was the BAF, but I'm actually very, very happy with it. I am very pleased with this, despite the fact that it isn't a figure that I really thought I needed. I'm really, really happy with him, and I'm glad they picked him for this wave. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. He is, of course, very different from most figures because he is a head with legs and arms sticking out of it. He has no chest, so he is missing a lot of traditional joints. He's really just arms and legs. That's about it. So you do have 4 distinct arms, so they all socket in just like any other Build-A-Figure arm, and they do all have hinges, so they can go out. They can all rotate. The ones that are up on the top I find a little hard to rotate at times just to get a good grip on them, but they do spin all the way around. You've got bicep swivels on all of them. You do have double jointed elbows on all of them, and then you've got hinges and you've got rotation on all 4. So they're very much your normal Build-A-Figure large, beefy arms. There is no hindrance to any of them except for just getting into some of them. Like these up on the top, they're obviously kind of in a weird spot, but otherwise they do move how you would expect any other arm to move. He has nothing at the neck because he doesn't have a neck, really, if you want to call it that. He doesn't have an ab crunch. He doesn't have anything like that. No diaphragm cut. He does have a waist twist, so you can swivel him around, which works better than you might expect just to make it look like he's kind of twisting and moving around. It's better than having him standing straight forward like that. He's got these really squat, scrawny legs. They're really massive, but they're also very small at the same time. They only go out about yay far. They kick forward just about that far. They're very, very diminutive. They kick back a little bit. You've got a thigh cut. There is a single jointed knee that rotates, kind of like what we're seeing lately with Black Series figures. And then you've got rotation, or not rotation, rather rocker, and you've got hinges down at these very Sideshow Bob style feet. So, you know, he is very familiar territory in what he does have. There's nothing real crazy except for the single jointed knees. That's not something we see really, at all with Legends, but I understand why they had to go this route here. He's mostly, again, just your feet, legs, arms, and hands. He has nothing else, but he does move pretty well. You know, for what he is, I'm not upset by the fact that he doesn't have anything in his torso. What would they have done outside of maybe giving us a movable jaw? But then you probably wouldn't have this crazy tongue, and I do really like that feature. So for what he is, I'm pretty happy with how he moves around. But let's be honest, where this guy really excels, what he's meant for is his look, his design, his shelf presence, and his size, because I'm not sure if people really know exactly how big he is until you get him in hand. He is very, very large, despite the fact that he seems kind of small in some respects. It's mostly because those legs really throw you off, but there's a lot of plastic here. So you've got, you know, these massive, massive arms here. They don't really have any paint on them. I'm curious if maybe a little black wash would work really good because he has a ton of sculpt in here. There is a lot of, like, I guess it's supposed to be hair, but it also could be like muscle striation as well, stuff like that. But there's a little something going on with a lot of them. So he's got a bunch of rings on his hands. There's rings over here. He's got these little bracers here. They're all separate pieces, so they can swivel. You can take them off if you pop the hands off. The face is obviously the focal point of this figure. Ton of sculpt. The hair is really well done, that kind of buzz cut that he's got up there in between those horns, the big bushy eyebrows, the deep sunken kind of tired looking evil eyes because he's got those big red circles. But the mouth is huge and gaping. It's like a big maw of teeth with this crazy tongue that you can put, you know, like unsuspecting porgs into, or baby Yoda, or whatever in the world you want to do with him. He's got little button accents over here. He does have these suspenders, which is a separate piece, so you could take it off if you don't want it on there. Just take the legs off and it'll slip right off, with the arms off, of course. And then it just sort of hangs there. It looks really good. It sits nicely on the figure. It does have a slot for his hammer down here, and I cannot for the life of me get that thing to sit in there correctly. That's kind of an iffy spot for me. It does not want to seem to go in there. Frankly, I'm never going to use that probably, but I might as well point it out. But the overall torso, head, face, whatever region on this figure is the main draw. It looks incredibly well done. Sculpt is just crazy. There's a lot of shading, tons of paints, and it's just a cool, weird, different design that I didn't expect to see in figure form, and it just works really well. He's got these stupid little squat legs that are incredibly muscular while at the same time looking very small and childish and fat in some ways. They just defy all logic. And then you've got those crazy Sideshow Bob feet. He does have one accessory, that you can use in two technically of his 4 hands if you wanted to use it in this one, because he does have 4 distinct hands: fist, gripping, well, style pose, finger pointing, and gripping. You've got his hammer here that says sugar on it, done up in that marbly metallic plastic. Really dig this. I always love to get accessories with a Build-A-Figure because we know that's not the most common of things, but it's nice to see one actually get it. So yeah, I mean, I'm very much happy with the way this guy looks. I think Hasbro did a really good job executing him from a sculpt perspective and paint perspective. But what about the size? How does this guy stack up to other figures in the wave, and then, some Build-A-Figures too? Because I think he's bigger than a lot of folks expect. So here he is next to a couple figures from the wave. We've got Weapon X and then Dark Beast. They're, kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. Wolverine. Weapon X is, of course, very small, but you can see that Sugarman is still taller than him. He's not crazy tall by comparison, but in terms of overall girth and just amount of plastic, he dwarfs him. Even though he's not too much taller, he still makes him look incredibly small by comparison. And Dark Beast is definitely not your average Marvel Legends. He's quite a bit larger than most figures, and he's not too much taller than Sugarman, but is of course also dwarfed in size, just in terms of amount of plastic, width, girth, all of that. And even though these guys aren't exactly the right versions to compare with, we've got Mr. Sinister and Apocalypse here because, well, these very much go with Sugarman. And this will give you an idea of what the upcoming AOA Apocalypse will look like next to Sugarman. So you can see that he is definitely shorter than your average Build-A-Figure. He is shorter than a much larger non-Build-A-Figure Marvel Legends. Sinister is obviously quite a bit larger than most, but he still has a tremendous size difference. I mean, Apocalypse is not even remotely able to cover all of Sugarman when he's in front of him. The arms alone will just kind of make every figure seem a little bit smaller, but there is a ton of plastic here, and he's going to dwarf a lot of other figures from a sheer bulk perspective, and he's definitely still got a lot of height on him, even though he's not as tall as a lot of other BAFs. And something I don't think I've done in quite a while is maybe a ranking of figures in an entire wave. So we're going to run through this real quick, going from least to favorite. I'm not going to go too in-depth on why. So we've got at the bottom, X-Man. He's got a wonky face. Then we got Wild Child. Then we've got Weapon X. And then we've got Jean Grey, Dark Beast, Morph. I was expecting to like him as my favorite because I really love Morph, but I do like this figure quite a bit. However, he was outshined by Sunfire, and Sunfire is just a stellar figure all around. He does have a few little articulation things that I touched on in his review, but I love translucent plastic. I love this design, translated really well into figure form. But honestly, the favorite for me in this entire wave, and this has been kind of a theme with a lot of Build-A-Figures this year so far, is that the Build-A-Figure itself kind of just overshadows the rest of the wave. He's kind of a greater than the sum of all his parts, really, because this figure is really well done in a general sense from a sculpt perspective. There's a lot of paint on him. The design, of course, is crazy and wild, and it translates really well into figure form. I do like pretty much everything in this wave in some fashion or another. It is a very strong wave for me personally. You have to like AOA, obviously, to feel that way. But I think we've got a lot of solid figures here, but Sugarman definitely just takes the cake for me because there's so much crazy stuff going on, and I think they did the best they could with a head for a body. So yeah, that's going to do it for the Age of Apocalypse wave and the Sugarman Build-A-Figure. And honestly, like I said, this is a really strong wave for me. I'm a huge fan of Age of Apocalypse, so for the most part, I was really looking forward to a lot of these. The only figure that really let me down in any true capacity was X-Man, because I think he's got that wonky face. But the rest of them are really solid in their own right. But Sugarman is an incredibly just wild Build-A-Figure. He is weird is the best way to say it. There's just a lot of weird stuff going on here, from his overall design to how his parts actually work. The fact that he even exists, of course, is just absurd to begin with. I never expected we were going to get this, and Hasbro really delivered on it. The sculpt on it is fantastic. Paint is really good. There is quite a bit going on with this guy, and I'm really happy to have him. He may not be the biggest Build-A-Figure that we've gotten, but he is a beefy, massive toy. I mean, he's just as tall as a lot of other BAFs, and he is quite a bit larger. He's a big boy, and he's going to have a huge shelf presence when you get him in your X-Men display. So that's going to do it for this look at the Marvel Legends Sugarman Build-A-Figure. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.